Excellent. So without further ado, I introduce you to Julie Barry. She'll be talking to us about R&D tax relief for the construction industry. Thank you, Julie.
Let's see if I can get this shared screen thing to work, because I've had so many problems with it this morning.
I'm sure
Hopefully we'll be okay.
Morning, Jules.
Hi Norma, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good, 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 good.
Yeah, this is one of our competitors though, so I really want to listen to it.
Clicking on this to try and get it to do its thing. Now I have to switch these over for some reason, and hopefully now you can see the correct one.
That's fantastic. Yeah? Yep.
Wow, it's amazing what you can do when you practice, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, as Neil said there, Julie Barry from Rift R&D. I'm going to be talking about R&D tax relief for the construction industry. I'm very aware that we are pretty well known in the area, so you may well have seen some of this before. But you know, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, let's make it about you guys that are here to listen, and please do not be shy in you know, sort of asking any question, even if you think it sounds silly. Please do ask it, because this is not straightforward. I'm sure Kai's presentation wasn't either. Anything to do with tax, I'm sure is deliberate, is deliberately made complicated, and we try and make that as simple as we can. But it's very difficult in a presentation like this to present something generically that is so individual, but I'll do my best. And hopefully it makes sense to you all. So as I say, I'm Julie Barry, Head of Business Development. I get around quite a bit talking to people about how this works for lots of individual businesses, but the majority of my time is spent in construction. So yeah, very, very familiar as a business with the construction world and how this relates. So today should be hopefully shedding some light for you guys on that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, I'll give us an overview of the R&D tax relief. We'll touch on why it's more relevant now than ever. Talk a little bit about construction claims, common misconceptions. A lot of people have set ideas already about this, so we'll try and get rid of some of those. And because so many businesses have taken advantage of the finance around the coronavirus, bounce back loans and business interruption loans, we'll have a little look at that as well, just so people know how that relates to this R&D tax relief. And then at the end, hopefully, we'll have a few questions that bring it to life a little bit more for everybody. So I just put this slide in here because we changed, I think it must be about 9-10 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. We changed our branding, and one of the things that we moved on to was using this. So hopefully, if you guys know Rift at all, you've seen this in various forms, you know, either on our website or at you know, various different presentations and the like, even maybe face to face before the lockdown kicked in. And I think that if you take nothing else away from today, take this, that people are very caught up on R&D being what other people do. So research and development is not something that people do in an everyday business. The main message today is that is so far from the reality that you need to try and sort of think about it a bit differently. And hopefully as we go through the presentation, I'll be able to help with that. But if you take nothing else away, take this away, that any of these places plus hundreds of others could be an R&D lab in relation to the R&D tax relief scheme and how HMRC view R&D. It's not the traditional, got to be a scientist, got to be bringing something entirely new to market, very cutting edge, you know, right at the forefront of your industry. That it is for that, but it's not only for that. So what is it all about then? So R&D tax relief is there to support UK businesses that are trying to do something better, trying to improve on the status quo. And they are those types of businesses that either would be bringing something new to market, or it's just those that within their sector recognise that there's room for improvement. So it's there to support financially those that are spending money trying to improve their sector, trying to bring something new, trying to improve on something that's existing. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really not just for scientists and for those obvious R&D industries, it's for every business. It's quite an interesting tax relief in as much as it's a retrospective thing, obviously, because it's tax relief, but you can go back 2 financial years. So if you have been doing something interesting, or even if you just think, well, I wonder, because I don't really know, it's worth having a conversation with someone to see whether you could make a claim, because as I say, you can go back 2 financial years, which could be quite a big cash boost at the moment to a business. I think everybody is struggling. It's not an easy time for anyone. So if you have been carrying out some qualifying activity, it's worth having a look to see if you can claim back some of that tax. You don't have to be paying tax, but you do need to be eligible to pay corporation tax. So even if you are a business that is in loss, you are still able to make a claim. Or it could be that you're a business that's pre-trade, you can still make a claim. But I think loss is probably the, the main factor that people are going to be contending with at the moment. So yeah, if you're a business that is eligible to pay corporation tax, whether you're a large business or whether you're an SME, this is something that you should be looking at to see whether you can either claim some of that tax back or reduce any future tax bill. It's something that you do need to be eligible to pay corporation tax. So if you are a partnership or a sole trader and you are not eligible to pay corporation tax, unfortunately, you can't benefit from this scheme. I will just caveat that. If you are an LLP, so a lot of architects and consultancies might be an LLP, but they put all their costs and their payroll and that type of expenditure through a limited company, then you can make the claim through the limited company. So you have to have access to a limited company to be able to make a claim because it's corporation tax, basically. Okay, what are the benefits? If you are an SME, you can claim back up to 33% of the identified qualifying costs. So if we identified £100,000, you could be eligible to claim back up to 33,000. I say up to, the scale is from about 14.5% up to 33%, depending on how you take that benefit, and whether you are spending more or less on R&D than you are in profit or loss. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's not straightforward, it is quite complicated, but on average, most businesses end up around 24–25% benefit. So it's very much worth doing, very much worth looking at. If you are a large company, you can claim on a different scheme, which is called RDEC. It's nowhere near as generous. You can't include as many costs, but we're going to focus today on the SME side because I think that's where most businesses fit. But if it was an RDEC claim, then you would only be able to claim back up to 12%, well, 12% of your qualifying costs, but you then pay tax on it. So versus the SME one at 33% is the maximum, it's a big difference. So obviously, for an SME, they're really trying to encourage SMEs to be innovative. So what type of activity qualifies? It can be, as I mentioned earlier, about bringing something new to market and being very groundbreaking. But actually, the main area that people claim is around problem solving and overcoming challenges, particularly in construction. As we all know, you never ever get your drawings, get on site, and it all goes to plan, it all comes in on time, it all comes in on budget, all the planning and preparation was, exactly how it went. It never ever happens like that. When I speak to lots of people, as we obviously do in the construction industry, and we talk to them about what qualifies, we normally say to them to find the projects that qualify, we need to talk about the ones that went over on time and went over on budget. And the response pretty much always is, well, that's all of them. And that just is how the industry works, which is why if somebody in the industry hasn't looked into this and isn't claiming, that they probably are at a competitive disadvantage, because I'm pretty sure that your competitors are claiming, which might be the answers to why, how can they do something for that price? Because if they already know that there's going to be problems and they know they're going to be able to claim back up to a third of those costs in solving those problems, then you know, they can maybe be a little bit you know, more competitive when they're tendering for work or bidding for work. So we mentioned the problem solving there. The key to this as to what type of activity qualifies sits very much around what you end up with. So the activity that qualifies is normally you've got a problem or a challenge, you need some expertise to help you solve that, and you and your company could be those experts, or it could be that you've actually had to subcontract that to somebody else because it is such a specific problem. That expert still has that moment of, okay, well, yes, I'm sure it can be done, but I don't know quite how. So they go through a work of trial and error, a learning curve, to establish the solution to that problem. And at the end of it, you've learned something new. And the key here is that that information was not readily available to you. So if you've got a problem, you try to solve it, you go through a painful, costly process of establishing the solution to the problem. If that information was readily available and just general practice elsewhere, but you didn't know it, then it doesn't qualify. So basically, if you can Google it, if you can look it up, if you can speak to somebody who can just solve that for you, it won't qualify. The key here is that even an expert has that element of trial and error. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not simple, it's not straightforward, but I've tried to give sort of a bit of an overview there of what qualifies. But if you have got something in mind and you're thinking, I wonder if it's this, I wonder if it's that, that's how, Norma's also here today on the call, that's how Norma and I spent a lot of our time, is just having those conversations with clients, just explaining how what they have done does or doesn't qualify. So please do ask the question either at the end of the session today, or you can get in touch with us at any other point. We'll be happy to talk it through. So what costs qualify? The best way of looking at this, if it is consumed within the project, then it's something we can look at. The majority of costs are labour, because these problems are time consuming. We can include some overheads, we can include additional support, we can include materials, some subcontractors can go in there as well. So we just have a look at all the costs that have been used up in that project, and that's how we get to the final figure. Just making sure I'm covering everything I need to cover on each slide, because I'm very, very aware that I am rushing through this. Excuse me while I have a little gin. Only joking, Neil, not really. Not on your watch.
I don't blame you. I noticed that Cheryl's on the same stage as you at the moment. I know they've cracked open the gin anyway.
Got to be done. Us girls know how to party.
You do indeed. It's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. That's what they say.
I can hear you, Neil Vanstone. My video stopped because Ella's gone and left me.
But notice I didn't ask which Cheryl. I knew. Neil, you muted me. What are you doing? I can hear someone else talking.
We can hear you, Julie. Oh no, sorry, that's the other speaker on another stage. Sorry, I'll mute him. Carry on. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll mute myself. 1 second. Mute.
You carry on, Julie.
Okay, so why is it even more relevant now? So it's always been for problem solving, but now more than ever, people are looking at ways to do what they do better, to have you know, sort of cheaper, faster solutions to the issues that they have, particularly post-COVID. You know, it's going to be a period of time of adjustment for a lot of businesses, and a lot of that activity will actually fall into the R&D side of things. So again, it's always worth looking. So on this slide here, there are a selection of reasons why I think that it's more relevant now, particularly in construction. There is nothing new there. All of these things that you can see on this slide are all activities that we regularly look at and regularly make a claim for. You know, sustainability, net zero carbon, digital construction, offsite, modular, you know, passive house. They're all activities that are everyday activities within the construction industry. You know, new and improved ways of working, embracing new technology or using something existing in a new way. All issues that the construction industry deal with on a day-to-day basis. You know, there's so many activities that would qualify that. This is just a few sort of headlines of the ones that are most common. I put in here failed bids and tenders. If you've gone through an R&D activity to enable you to bid or tender for work, that's still a cost that can be included. And more than ever, cash flow is going to be key. So you know, if you are considering looking at this, now is a good time, because once you actually make a claim, which we can do in a matter of weeks, the HMRC pay it out in about 6 weeks. So you know, it's certainly worth getting that money in your bank rather than leaving it with HMRC, when in fact you're entitled to it if you've overpaid that tax. Okay, so construction industry, the majority of our claims fit into these areas: logistics, groundworks, conservation, bespoke, unique design, all areas that I'm sure will resonate with you all as being often problematic, particularly groundworks and conservation. A lot of architects spend their time coming up with bespoke, unique design, which, you know, includes things like, you know, your passive house, your sustainability, using new technology. So we do a lot there with architects around that bespoke, unique design. But the majority fall into logistics, groundworks and conservation for your general construction company. Okay, next one, common misconceptions. These are the things that people tend to say to us when we start to talk to them about whether they should or shouldn't be making a claim. People don't think it's for everyday business. It is. It's specifically for everyday business, but I go back to the, you know, scientists, you know, bringing something new to market type of approach to the words research and development. But R&D tax relief is for any business that is doing something that you know, is a bit innovative and trying to push boundaries. A lot of people think that you have to have deliberately set about an R&D project in as much as have a budget specifically for it and have an R&D team and an R&D space. You don't. You do need to have a project, but as in the construction industry, every job you do is a project and every problem within it is a project, and that's what that relates to. So it can just be picked out of your everyday activities. My accountant would have covered this. Many accountants are getting a bit better at this now, but it's a very much a specialist area to be able to identify. Most accountants are general in as much as, you know, they cover all types of business. To be able to identify exactly what each business would be doing would be a tall order for your general accountant to be able to do. There are some that are excellent and have an R&D department that is very, very thorough and you know, excellent service. The majority of them choose not to get that involved because it is so detailed, it is time consuming, it is so specific to each individual sector and individual business that they don't want to go into that area of expertise. They want to be more of a generalist. But as I say, there are some out there who have chosen to really embrace it and are doing a fantastic job. The majority actually use a company like us to cover their R&D because they just don't want to take it on. I'm not bringing something new to market. You don't have to be. I think I've mentioned that a couple of times. It could just be something that benefits your business. It could be something that just got you through this project. You certainly do not need to be bringing it to market. I can't provide the proof is something that the majority of people say. The good thing is HMRC don't expect you to. You don't have to. What we do is we provide a technical report to HMRC which explains why your project, your activities that we're including in the claim meet the guidelines and therefore qualify. We do exactly the same thing with all the costs. We explain what we've included, why we've included it, how much of it. So when they read the report, that's all they need as proof. You don't need to be able to prove that the thing you have done has never been done by anybody else, or the thing that you have done is not, that information is not available. You know, we'll do the due diligence on it. But I'm pretty sure that most businesses, if they could Google the solution, would not spend a lot of time and money trying to come up with a solution, unless the solution that's available was going to take too long or was too expensive. In which case you're then trying to improve on the existing so it still qualifies anyway. I don't have the records to back up my claim. Again, HMRC are very understanding that as long as everything has gone through the accounts for the financial year that we are making the claim, that's fine, we can do the rest. They don't expect you to have detailed records for something you didn't know you were able to claim. So they are quite supportive in that area. Going forward, having made a claim, they would prefer and expect that you would be able to keep some records that would support a claim should they ask for them. And we always help our clients in achieving that without making it a huge onerous task. Okay, I mentioned the furlough and the CBILS and BIBLS, which hopefully everyone's aware of. Coronavirus business interruption loan and business bounce back loan. And obviously furlough, I think we all are familiar with that now. The thing I want to just point out here is that CBILS and BIBLS are state aid, as is R&D tax relief. So if you have got CBILS or BIBLS in your business, then just be very mindful where you spend that money, because you want to avoid, if you can, spending it on an R&D project. Also, the other thing is if you do have to spend it on an R&D project, try and limit it to one so you at least can claim for the others. Just be mindful of state aid is one of those things where if you are an SME and you have received state aid, and this can also be Innovate grants, that type of funding from the government, then you cannot claim on the SME scheme with the up to 33%. You can only claim on the RDEC scheme up to 12%. So you reduce your benefit dramatically. So if you're in that situation, again, speak to an expert. Time that staff are furloughed, obviously they're not working on an R&D project, so their time cannot be included, but the furlough payment scheme is not state aid. So just a little bit thrown in the end there to confuse everybody, hopefully not too much. Okay, how are we doing for time? Oh, pretty good. So back to sort of the beginning thing really is, where's your R&D lab? So just as a summary, it's there for all businesses, it's there for overcoming problems and challenges. You need to be spending money going through your accounts. And you need to be eligible to pay corporation tax, but you don't actually need to be paying it. So if anyone's sitting there thinking, I wonder if that's me, ask the question, because if it is, then it could be a very worthwhile exercise to to see how much that's worth to you. And that is me done. There's my contact details. Please feel free to phone me. At the moment, I would say please use the mobile. It's just a bit easier because that's sat on my desk, as opposed to if you go through the main line, you go through the head office that then phone me on my soft phone, which is a little bit temperamental. But please feel free, phone me, email me. For those of you that know Norma, she's just as happy to help and answer any questions. But that's it. Bit of a whirlwind tour.
Thank you very much, Julie.
Should I stop sharing and see if anyone,
Yeah,
if anyone's still there?
If you just want to leave your, perhaps you can just leave your contact details on just for a little bit longer for those that, to take that down for them. But thank you so much, Julie. There's some fantastic takeaways there, especially around the state aid. I'm sure all the audience will agree with me. Obviously, it is it's uncharted ground. Things are changing all the time. And it's great to have someone like yourselves, the experts, yourself and Norma. So if there is anyone in the audience, I do encourage you to reach out, speak to Julie and or Norma, and they can certainly navigate you through this forever changing landscape. I'm going to come to Richard Miller. He's got a question that he wanted to just position to you, Julie, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
so Richard, I'll unmute you and mute you. So I'll take control for that. All right.
Oh,
there you go, Richard.
Thank you. I did type the question in there, Neil. Sorry. Yeah, I was just wondering whether the tax relief applied for things around in the field that I represent, which is digital automation and website integration, using some of the newer technologies out there. Would it apply full tax relief, say, for the company that I'm with, or would we be able to say extend that and suggest to people that we're laying out tender for that if they were to use us for these current technologies or more innovative technologies within you know, the sort of online world, would they be eligible to get the tax relief?
Okay, thanks for your question, Richard. Yeah, there's often this question as to who actually has the claim. So for the activity that you're talking about, I would say it won't be all of it, but there will be some in there. So where you are using new technology and where you're trying to improve on the technology that's there, or joining several off-the-shelf packages to try and get something that actually meets the demand or the need, all of those areas are certainly worth looking into. It's a common question around who has the claim. So the way to look at this is, if you are being paid by your client and they are paying you a set price to do something, and that takes longer than you estimated. So let's say you said to them, it's going to cost 10 grand. I'm just picking figures out the sky. So
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But it's going to cost 10 grand. So you've said to them, we will do that for you and it's cost 10 grand. And they go, yeah, okay, fine, we'll have that. But actually, when you deliver it, you realize it takes a lot more of your time than you thought, because you've got technical problems that you need to resolve that are not easily solved because it's new, it's innovative, it's something a bit different, and it's a bespoke solution. You are eating away at your margin, your profit, because you're spending time solving something you hadn't allowed for in your £10,000 bill. So that's what we look at is, did you make less money than you anticipated because you had to overcome problems? So if that's the case, then the claim sits with you. If the client is paying you for your time and saying, as long as it takes, doesn't matter, I'll pay you on a day rate, you just go solve that problem, then the risk financially sits with the client, therefore the client has the claim.
But thank you very much. That's got me a bit lost for words, because I get too excited. I get a bit passionate about what I tend to do. So basically, because I work within the sort of digital world with digital automation and so forth, you know, such as things like AR, augmented reality and virtual reality and things like that. These things are huge in the construction industry. Are there things that people are are sort of able to claim on that side. Does that make sense? Sorry, I know that's kind of like my last question, but I just wanted to get more in specific examples of what maybe perhaps people could claim for, because I didn't really want to get some of the clients sort of roused up if there wasn't really anything in it.
If you're doing something that is, if you're just saying to them, yes, we know how to do that, here it is.
Yeah.
We've done it before. It's out there. It's common. No, that won't qualify, even though it's new to that client. If they're asking you for something that is more complicated, that needs advancement, needs development, and is perhaps going to provide an entirely bespoke solution to them, yes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so that would apply to obviously a new website if it wasn't, say, perhaps if it was sort of constructed and built using, you know, sort of tailor-made tools, not, you know, the common sort of off-the-shelf packages, that type of thing.
You've hit the nail on the head. If it is everyday bread and butter, but the website looks different and has a slightly different functionality, but how you have built it is entirely new, then that would count. So it's what you make it out of, not what you end up with.
Okay, and because obviously we're using products and things like that, because there could be like a grey area, because we'd probably be using stuff or software sort of developed and produced, say, in the Ukraine, and then sort of using technology from America, or also using a startup in South Africa. Do you know what I mean? Like, are these things sort of applicable? Does it get broken down like that, or does it not?
It does.
Richard, and could I just interject just very quickly? Just before we get into specifics, Richard, I would recommend highly, and Julie, if you don't mind, getting in contact with Rift and Julie. I'm just very aware that we're opening up another stage now with other guest speakers.
Sorry about that, Julie. I am connected with you on LinkedIn. I'll message you.
Yes,
right. Sorry about that, Julie.
No, it's all right. Don't worry, Richard. I don't want anybody else to miss. So if I could re-signpost you now all back to the main stage where we have Guy talking, that unfortunately he was not able to speak earlier on this morning. So if you'd like to leave this stage, we reconvene here at 1 o'clock. So thank you again very much, Julie, for your time and your talk.